What's up, guys, and welcome back for another EVE Online video. In this one, as requested, I'm going to be kind of just doing a broad stroke on how I fit mining ships. We're going to mainly focus on barges, exhumers. I might touch a little bit on the expeditionary frigates, but also just talk about the situations that you want to use these different ships in, and look at how I tend to fit them, or popular ways to fit them in different scenarios. Now, the first thing I'm going to go over is the Mackinac, because that's what you see me use a lot in this series. So we're going to kind of just pull up my fit, and this changes based on kind of depending on what you're doing. Now this one right here is currently set up for max range. That's why we're using the ore strip miners here. It allows me to get max range, which really helps with the when you have implants and stuff going along with them. I personally like putting mining laser 2 upgrades all in the lows, but depending on, like, if you're in low sec and you're using this ship, another thing you can do here is go under the hull and armor and go damage control. A lot of people like running damage control here, but also if you're in low sec too, you can potentially even use a warp core stabilizer, which is going to be under propulsion here. And this can just help you kind of like get away in certain situations. If you really want to kind of double dip here, you could potentially just go with damage control and warp core stab. Now keep in mind, if you use a warp core stabilizer, it is going to drastically affect your drone usage, especially on smaller ships. And then what I normally do on the mids, and this is going to change, the tank you add to the mining ship is going to change greatly depending on which barge or which exhumer, because they all have different levels of power grid and CPU. Now for this ship, this is just a very basic Mackinac, but usually your multi-spectrum shield hardeners are really good. Those are kind of a staple for mining ships. I like to fit EM shield amp 2s because that's usually the resistance hull on most ships. I run a survey scanner just so I can see how big rocks are, and when I need to like switch rocks if I need to, or get ready to switch rocks. And you can fill these in with whatever you want. You know, we can go double up on the amp, or we can go in here and throw in another multi-spec. The other option that's not on this ship, but what you could do, is you could run a extender as well. So we're going to go to the mid slots, go to shield, and we go to extenders up here. It won't take a large. What you're going to be doing on this ship is going to be a medium, so like a Tech 2 shield extender, which would be a nice overall buffer. And then you have some resistance here, and also shield hardener just helps with those resistances and everything. Now in terms of the actual high slots, this is going to change greatly, and a lot of what I'm talking about here applies to every other barge or exhumer you might run. You're just going to have to adjust the tank and the lows depending on what ship you're fitting. You might have to like use compact hardeners over multi-spec 2s, so you have to kind of work within the different power grid and CPU. So the ore strip miners, those are good for really long range and no waste, so we're going to go and strip those off, no pun intended. The other options we have here is, I never use ice harvester 1s because they require way too much CPU. It's better just to like train and go for the regulars. These are just going to be your generic ice harvester 2s, and if you do that, you definitely want to switch out your upgrade down here for the ice harvester upgrade. And if you really want to maximize the cycle time reduction, you can throw in more of these with maybe less tank or navigation stuff. The other thing you can do when you're ice mining is you can go to rigs, and there is down here resource harvesting, I think, medium ice harvester accelerator. This will actually help further decrease your ice cycle time as well. Now for any serious mining, then you like in null sec, where you have, you know, a lot more safety than in, like, let's say high sec. I do kind of spring for ice, at least I do kind of spring for the ice harvester, because the ore ice harvesters, because they're just a lot better. They have a little bit better range. They're just, you know, overall probably the best. Even if I want to go budget on everything, I try to go at least faction or ice harvesters over just the regular Tech 2 variants. So that would be like your ice coverage. We're going to go ahead and clear all this out. The next thing we can talk about is strip miners. Strip miner 1s are just going to be your basic. You're just run-of-the-mill just your run-of-the-mill strip miners. You know, for if you're really starting off on mining and everything, that's going to be just, they're going to have waste. They're not going to have great range. They're going to use a little bit more CPU than normal, but they're just kind of like your entry point, right? A step up from that would be your modulated strip miners. They do require a little more CPU, but they have higher yield. And these you have to actually pair with crystals. I have a whole other separate video over mining crystals, so if you want to learn more about those, watch that. But we're going to go, usually type A's are going to be good for, they're not going to waste too much ore, but they're going to have a little bit lower cycle time. For high sec, when I'm just doing very, very common ore that's available all over the place, I tend to use B's. Bees will like cycle faster, especially if you can get in like an Indicom system with a mining bonus or whatever. But my daily driver is definitely type B2s when I'm using modulated strip miners, so keep that in mind. Now, as far as rigs go, if you're not using, I would say if you're not Mercoxis mining or ice mining, I usually just kind of go with shield rigs. So I'll go in here to the medium shield rigs, and I'm either, if you're on a budget, you can go with Defense Core Extender 1s, but considering the price of mining ships nowadays, I end up just putting Tech 2s on here, which just helps your shield a little bit more. But the next thing I'll go over is going to be showing you the actual Mercoxis fit, which the Mercoxis fit is going to have the same lows. You are going to change it up. You're going to have a modulated deep core strip miner. This is required to do Mercoxis, and you're going to load this with actual Mercoxis crystals. I usually run Mercoxis with A's because I don't want to waste the ore. I want to have the best, I want to get as much of that yield off the field as I possibly can. And then, in addition to the deep cores, which are required, you have your mining laser upgrade 2 in the low. For a rig, you can actually go down here, back to the resource processing rigs, and there is a medium Mercoxis mining crystal optimization, and this is just going to pump up your Mercoxis. So really the only two rigs you need to worry about as a miner are the Mercoxis rig and the ice rig, depending on what you do, either one. You can't fit both of them on the ship, so usually in most cases, if I don't want to, I have in the past had like a Hulk that is rigged for Mercoxis, and then a Hulk that's rigged for ice, just so depending on what I'm doing fleet-wise, I can just kind of switch. But in more recent times, I've kind of got away from using the rigs. I would rather just like have the extra tank here and not to worry about it. But if you want to min-max, then that's potentially a good way to go. The next thing I'm going to talk about now is going to be moon mining. So we're going to go and throw other shield rig back in there, and this is going to use modulated strip miners as well. So really, if you kind of train into using Tech 2 modulated strip miner 2s, and then you start working on all the processing skills for your charges, then you kind of open up a lot of things for Mercoxis and for moon mining and for abyssal ore and things like that. So you're just going to basically, if you're going to do moon mining with the Mercoxis, or sorry, if you're going to do moon mining with the modulated strip miners, you just need to get like the common, ubiquitous, uncommon reprocessing skills to 4. Then you can use those skills in the modulated strip miner 2. And for those, I still use A's because most of the time those moon mining ops are corp ran, so you don't want to waste too much on that kind of stuff. So like here, these are type 1s. I really don't ever use type 1 crystals at all. I just go straight to level 4 reprocessing, so I don't have to worry about the gross difference between type 1 and type 2. So common, like here, if we're going to do a common moon ore, we can just go common moon ore crystal type A's, and that would be good to go. There's no rig that really supports it, and then the mining laser upgrade 2 in the low is still going to be sufficient for everything in terms of that. But that is pretty much everything. And like I said, if you're going to different ships, your tank might look a little bit different. So like for instance, this is a Mackinac, so it looks pretty good. Now I'm gonna take all, and you might have to adjust your tank too if you're going from like ice to like ore mining because of the difference in CPU usage. So I'm gonna take these off, and we're gonna throw on the worst case scenario, and that's gonna be Ice Harvester 2s. You see that really puts us real close. Same kind of difference with the skiff, right? If you're not going to see a lot of player activity, then you can just kind of match the pirate damage there. So it's still a large gender, an amp, a hardener, whatever configuration you kind of want to use. And in here I'm using all 3 laser upgrades, but if you want to use damage control and a workhorse stab, it's definitely still possible. Now let's go over to the Hulk here. This Hulk is actually using modulated deep score, so it's kind of slowly, it's almost set up for Mercoxis. But here we have like compact multi-spectrum shield hardener and an amp with no extender, only because if we take these off and we actually throw on Ice Harvester 2s, we're gonna get pretty close. But it's like if we took off these and replaced the compact hardeners with, say, just regular Tech 2 shield hardeners, then you're gonna run into a CPU problem for the most part, especially if you want to try to run anything more in the lows here. And now that works with the Ice Harvester 2s, but now we'll see the difference if we go down to the modulated strip miners. See? So if you want to actually put your tank together to facilitate all the different types of strip miners you might want to use on that ship, you kind of need to like get your tank on there and then switch out between modulated, ice mining, deep cores, and make sure that everything is still within spec. Now we're going to drop this other shield hardener out, and then we can go back to a compact, which puts us right on the line. And that's one reason why I'm running 2 compacts, just so I have a little bit more leeway. Same principles apply for everything. You're going to have less mid slots to work with on tank, but use the same rules when you're that you would use with an exhumer fitting for here. And as far as drones go, just whatever drones are have the damage type that work well with the area that you're in. So for me, I do a lot of grease to space stuff, so I use like Hornets, Vespas, and things like that. As far as expeditionary frigates, not a whole lot changes here for me. Let's see. Here's one of my more popular endurance fits. I'm using all minor laser upgrade 2s in the lows. I have a modulated deep core strip miner 2 in the high, and then I have a improved cloaking device 2, and then a core probe launcher. The probe launcher is necessarily just look for like wormholes, because this ship really works really well going into wormholes. We use small overclocking unit rigs just to help us get a little bit more CPU to fit our tank. But the same kind of rules, like hardener, amp, extender really does well here. If you're going to go into wormholes with this, you probably do want a warp core stab, and you probably do want a damage control here. The reason I'm using a modulated deep core miner is so that I can run essentially crystals on this ship. So I could, I think this fit I use a lot for Pochman. So when I'm running like abyssal stuff, I can go in here and run abyssal crystals. You can also run moon crystals. You can also run Mercoxis crystals. But then also, obviously, if you're just doing regular ore, you can go with the miner 2 laser. Or if you're doing ice, you can do a ice harvester laser and things like that. Not a whole lot changes here. You do get some drone slots here. So usually, take 3 lights and then 3 miners, just depending. And we'll go ahead and talk about the Prospect. Prospect is a little weird because you have no drones here. You're basically a SIG tank ship. So if rats show up on the grid, especially if you're like null or something, you're just gonna orbit and basically SIG tank the damage while you're mining. But also this works really well if you're kind of like following. Maybe some of your friends are actually going around killing rats, and you're kind of just there to mine some stuff. But I usually go miner 2s here with the covert cloak, and then we want a afterburner 2 because we actually want that speed. Since we don't have drones to defend ourselves, we want that speed to get that that SIG tank going, and then EM to fill the resistance hole on the shield. And then for this, I like having inert stabilizers and a warp core stabilizer, because this ship ends up being in a low sec a lot in a noms. So whenever those destroyers or cruiser rats come in, I can just kind of like keep orbiting with my prop mod on, and they do minimal damage. And if I get to like a danger spot, like getting close to 25% shield, I'll warp off, recharge, and kind of start the whole process over. And then the warp core stabilizer just generally just helps with getting off grid for the most part. The Venture, this is a Venture Sino, but I don't think I have the Venture Fit here, but Venture Fit's going to be kind of the same deal. Now, with a Venture, if you're going into low sec, the Venture can actually help you survive quite a bit. So for my lows on this, I 100% go with a warp core stabilizer, because it already has an inherent bonus to the warp core stab. So this thing just ends up getting really hard to catch. For my highs, just if I'm going to low sec to do stuff, I just throw a couple miner 2s on there, maybe a probe scanner to help find wormholes or different sites, and just kind of scan SIGs while I'm mining. As far as the tank goes, kind of the same rule. You can probably go with you want a prop mod for the most part, but go with like compact hardener, and then go with like an afterburner or something. You're going to get probably a 1 MN Tech 2 on here, and that's gonna get you pretty close to stable. And then you could throw something else on here, you like EM amp, but probably you're gonna be limited to a compact EM amp. But the EM amp is literally just to fill the hole there. So see, there you go. And then you can also just throw like shield rigs on here as well. But shield rigs are really expensive even for the smalls. So in most cases, I would just throw like Tech 1s on here, because Tech 2s are just, you know, overpriced. 6 million each. So you'd be 6, 12, 18 million in just rigs, and the ship is only right now like this worth 6 million. If you're using a core warp core stabilizer, you're only going to be able to put out 1 drone as opposed to 2. I'll probably do another video going over the actual command ships, because they do differ quite greatly. But thank you for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.